Stunned millionaire CEO discovers heartwarming plea from little girl under bridge transforms lives. The sun dipped behind the skyline of Philadelphia, painting the city in warm oranges and purples as Mark Stevens, a millionaire CEO, strolled home from yet another high-powered meeting, his mind clouded with dreams of profit margins and stock prices. The skyscrapers towered above him, their glass facades reflecting the wealth that had become his prison. It was a comfortable life, but something felt amiss on this particular evening. Lost in his thoughts, he ambled over a small bridge, its weathered stones whispering tales of simpler times. Suddenly, a crumpled envelope poking out from the cracks caught his eye. Curiosity sparked, Mark picked it up. As he unfolded the fragile paper, he was surprised by the neat handwriting, a child's script spilling over with raw emotion. This was no ordinary letter. It was penned by a 10-year-old girl named Emma, a name that felt like a warm hug. Mark could almost hear her voice as he read her words of hope and despair. She wrote about her father, a proud veteran who had lost his job and the unbearable weight of their family's struggles. Her innocent plea for help tore through Mark like a bolt of lightning, unleashing an emotional torrent within him. Tears prickled at the corners of his eyes as he recalled his own childhood, filled with laughter but shadowed by his immigrant parents' relentless work ethic. This moment opened a floodgate of thoughts. Guilt swirled in his stomach. Had he really turned his back on the values that shaped him? In that instant, he saw Philadelphia not just as a city but as a tapestry of lives, each thread woven with resilience and despair. Deeply moved, Mark felt a spark of compassion ignite within him, pushing him to step outside the fortress of his privilege. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The following week saw Mark delve deep into the heart of Philadelphia, revitalizing the pieces of himself he thought he'd lost. He visited local diners, bustling with gossip and laughter, where hardworking families shared meals and dreams. He met mothers juggling jobs, children laughing amidst financial uncertainty, and artists pouring their souls into vibrant murals lining the streets. Each encounter left an indelible mark on his heart, stirring a sense of urgency to make a change. Yet, when he reached out to help Emma's family, resistance echoed off the walls. Emma's father, pride etched into every line of his face, rejected help, fearing it would diminish his worth. Mark found himself clashing with his corporate board, whose eyes held only the glint of profits. He was torn, questioning his intentions. Was he just a wealthy outsider trying to fit in, or could he genuinely make a difference? As tensions rose in the community, families faced eviction, whispers of despair mingling with the cold Philadelphia air. Mark's heart ached as he sat at a diner, pen in hand. Could his efforts create a spark of hope, or would they only drive a wedge between him and the families he sought to help? Just then, Emma's father walked in, eyes a stormy mix of challenge and gratitude, ready to confront Mark about the rift created by his well-meaning attempts. Would this moment mark the change Mark desperately sought, or would his past decisions cast a long shadow over his intentions? The air thick with unspoken words left the question lingering. Mark felt his heart race as Emma's father stepped forward, framed in the warm glow of the diner lights. Tom's face bore lines carved from years of struggle, his strong shoulders tense as he approached. Mark instinctively straightened, the weight of the moment pressing down on him, heavy and poignant. "Mr. Stevens," Tom began, his voice low yet steady. "We need to talk." Mark swallowed hard, nodding, unsure of what to say. This was not how he envisioned their first meeting. He had anticipated smiles, perhaps a spark of hope, but the air between them crackled with unspoken tension. "Emma's been worried," Tom continued. "Thinking too much about adult things. I can't let that happen." His eyes flashed with the fierce determination of a father. "And I can't accept charity. I won T. Mark's heart sank. He wanted to reach out, to tell Tom he wasn't there to pity him but to help him regain his footing. Tom, I get it. I really do. It's not charity, I want to invest in your future, in this community. There was a flicker in Tom's gaze, a mix of confusion and curiosity. Invest? You mean money? Yes, Mark replied, voice earnest. But more than that, resources, connections. I've seen families struggling, and I want to change that. Not just for Emma, but for all the kids in this city. I thought if we could partner. Tom spat, eyebrows knitted together. You think I need saving? You don't know me. I'm trying to understand, Mark pressed. You think I chose this life? I lost my way too, once upon a time. I'm ready to help but I can't do it alone. You have to let me in. The diner buzzed with chatter around them, but inside the small bubble of their interaction, time felt still. Tom's fists clenched, then relaxed, revealing a vulnerability he had masked with anger. There was a moment of flicker of connection as if the universe was telling them this was their chance. Mark leaned forward, sincerity dripping from his every word. I want to empower you and your family. Together, we can build something lasting, show Emma that strength comes from community. Tom hesitated, searching Mark's eyes for any hint of insincerity but found none. The tension began to shift, morphing into something softer. He took a deep breath as the weight of pride gradually crumbled. What do you need me to do? Mark's heart swelled. A breakthrough was close. Let us make a plan together. I'm here to listen, to learn what you truly need. We can find a solution, but I need your trust. As they began to talk, a sense of hope floated in the air. Outside, streetlights flickered to life, illuminating the city that had brought them together. But just as they were beginning to sketch out their path forward, the diner door swung open. A group of community members swept in, their faces taut with fear of evictions and despair. Mark glanced at Tom, who had also seen the change in atmosphere. This was about more than just them now. Hold that thought, Tom whispered, determination rekindled. Mark nodded, feeling the urgency settle into his bones. They were at the precipice of something larger than either could have imagined. Together, it seemed, they were ready to rise against the tide. But would the community rally with them, or would fear extinguish the flickering hope they had lit? As Mark watched the crowd, a new question emerged: were his ambitions big enough to capture the hearts of people like Emma's father? The air in the diner thickened as the group moved cautiously toward the counter. Faces were etched with worry, and murmurs wafted around the room like a distant storm. Mark's eyes darted between Tom and the newcomers, sensing the shift in energy. What is going on? Tom asked, standing a little taller now, his earlier tension returning. A woman with tired eyes stepped forward. It's the housing situation. They're raising rents again. People are scared, Tom. We're going to lose our homes. The words dripped with desperation, and Mark felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. As the weight of their concerns hit him, Mark glanced at Tom. The man's rough exterior momentarily cracked, revealing a deep-seated worry beneath. This was not just about Emma, not just about Tom's pride, it was about survival, about a community on the brink. Maybe they don't know what we're planning, Mark thought aloud, uncertain if he had spoken the words or if they were simply a wish. Tom shook his head. They need to know they are not alone. We need to make them feel it, not just promise it. Mark felt his heart quicken. He knew this was the moment. He was in the right place, and this was where his vision could ignite change. Let us gather them. Let us show them we care, that we're ready to fight. I don't know if they'll trust us, Tom murmured, the fear creeping back into his tone. Mark placed a hand on Tom's shoulder. They will. They're looking for hope, for someone to stand with them. We can be that someone. Slowly, Tom nodded. The fire in his eyes returned as he surveyed the crowd. One by one, he began to call out to familiar faces, his voice growing stronger. "Hey, everyone. We need to talk." Mark stepped back, watching the flames of determination spark within Tom. Soon, the group clustered around them, faces lighting up with a mix of curiosity and hope. "We've been talking about a plan," Tom continued, his voice steady now. "We can't do this alone, we need each other. Mark here has offered to help us, but we need your voices." A ripple of murmurs surged through the crowd, hesitance still lingering like a heavy fog. But Mark stepped forward, ready to bridge the gap. "Together, we can turn these challenges into opportunities. We can find solutions that matter. I promise this isn't just talk." A young girl barely 10, wearing a too big hoodie stepped shyly to the forefront. Her eyes were bright but shadowed with uncertainty. She cleared her throat. "My dad says that if we had a space, where people could work together, maybe things could change." A wave of silence followed, then a soft but powerful yes. Echoed from a mother holding a toddler. Inspiration began to ripple through the crowd, awakening something more profound than fear. It was community, it was togetherness. Mark watched the timid girl's small hand rise, and without thinking, he crossed to her side. "You're absolutely right. A space to gather, to share ideas, and support each other. That can happen. It's not just a wish. It can be real." Tom's brow furrowed slightly, but the hesitation was beginning to fade. "But where would we get it? We can't even afford the roof over our heads." "I have some ideas," Mark said, heart pounding with excitement. "I believe we can find a local business willing to partner with us. They might want to give back to the community to help kids like Emma. We just have to ask." That's when he saw it flare in the crowd, a flicker of hope. People started leaning in, voices rising with suggestions, eager to contribute. Mark felt a wave of adrenaline surging through him. "I think we're onto something," he whispered to Tom, their earlier anxiety giving way to determination. In that moment, they understood that they were no longer just two men trying to forge a partnership, they were allies in a cause. But it wouldn't stop here. It was the beginning of a battle. Mark had to ensure that everyone felt they had a stake, felt they belonged. As they wrapped up their initial gathering, the community buzzed with newfound energy. But just as they were about to outline the next steps, a loud crash echoed from outside, jolting everyone back to reality. Mark exchanged a tense glance with Tom. What was that? A sinking feeling filled the pit of Mark's stomach. They weren't out of the woods yet. Not by a long shot. What other challenges awaited right around the corner? The diner descended into a hush, the energy shifting from hopeful to apprehensive in an instant. Everyone turned toward the window. The sound of shattering glass had been unmistakable, and the timid girl at Mark's side shrank back, her eyes wide with fear. "Stay close," he whispered, instinctively putting himself in front of her. Tom stepped forward, his determination hardening into resolve. "We need to check it out," he said, his voice steady despite the tension radiating from every corner of the room. The group nodded, a collective instinct pushing them toward the entrance. As they filed out into the cool evening air, the stark contrast to the warmth of the diner hit them. The street lay cloaked in a dim orange glow from the streetlights, shadows dancing under flickering bulbs. Onlookers gathered near the entrance of Trix's Hardware, where a once proud window now lay in jagged shards on the pavement. What happened? A voice broke through the murmurs. It was Clara, a volunteer coordinator from the community center. Her concern was palpable as she rushed to Mark's side. People began crowding together, eyes darting between the shattered glass and one figure standing amidst the chaos, a young man, maybe in his 20s, pacing nervously. His clothes were tattered, and his arms were scratched, possibly from attempting to force his way through the window. "What is going on?" Tom called out, stepping forward. The young man froze, glancing tiptoed between the crowd and the mess he'd created. I just needed something." A few tools to fix. His voice trailed off, drowned out by the murmur of disbelief and confusion. Mark's heart raced. He could see the fear in the eyes of the townsfolk, strong but fraying, and he recognized the desperation that led someone to such an act. "Help!" came a sudden shout from the crowd. An elderly man struggled to navigate through the throng, his cane quaking in his hands. Someone called the cops. "Wait!" Mark raised his hands, finding the courage to step between the young man and the onlookers. "Everyone, take a breath. What is he even doing?" Clara protested. "Does he deserve help after what he did?" "Surely he was driven by something," Mark insisted, his heart racing. "He might have needed what he took, or maybe he was just lost. We can't forget who we are." Suddenly, the timid girl from the diner stepped forward, surprising everyone. "Please don't hurt him," she pleaded, her small voice rising above the tension. "He just wanted to fix something." "I know, my dad said he used to help a lot of people." Mark felt a jolt from her words, her innocence piercing through the knot of fear. All eyes shifted to her, the crowd growing uneasy but intrigued. Tom looked at Mark, his brow furrowed. "Can we really just overlook this?" "No." Mark turned back to the young man. "But we can listen. We can find out what led to this moment." "Why should we?" someone shouted from the back of the crowd. "Because if we don't, we might just be looking at our future," Mark replied, his voice steady. "We're all in this together, aren't we?" Slowly, a whisper of agreement passed through the crowd as the young man looked at the girl, his expression softening. Awareness dawned on his face, and he took a hesitant step forward. I didn't mean to scare anyone. I thought if I could get some help." Mark could see the change flickering in the crowd, uncertainty melting into curiosity. "Let us help him," came another voice from the back, followed by a chorus of murmurs and hesitant nods. Tom stepped back, allowing room, his expression transforming from skepticism to contemplation. "What would you need?" he asked the young man, now more open than before. The young man's shoulders slumped in relief. I have a kid at home. I'm trying to fix the roof over our heads." Mark's heart sank. The urgency and desperation behind his words reminded him all too well of their own plight. As the conversation progressed, the weight of their own struggles hung in the air like a thick fog. They were in a battle against more than just rent increases. They were fighting against a system that often left people behind. Mark turned to the crowd, feeling the shift of emotions pulsating through them. "This moment right here, it can be a turning point. We can either let fear divide us or let compassion guide us." But with the air buzzing with renewed hope, the sound of sirens began to wail in the distance. "Nobody move!" shouted a voice, sending a rush of panic through the crowd. Mark's heart raced again. The stakes had suddenly escalated. What would they do when the officers arrived? Would they stand by the young man, or would fear fracture this fragile community anew? As the sirens shrieked closer, the tension thickened, wrapping around the crowd like a suffocating blanket. Faces turned pale and eyes widened, uncertainty rippling through the onlookers. Mark felt the weight of their gazes pressing upon him and the young man, who seemed to shrink under the scrutiny. "Stay calm," Mark called out, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We're going to figure this out together." He could see Tom beside him, fists clenched, ready for whatever might come. The young man looked around, his panic rising as the flashing lights painted the street in hues of blue and red. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I was just trying to help my kid," he pleaded, voice breaking. Tears shimmered in his eyes, raw desperation emanating from him. It struck a chord deep within Mark, a reminder of their own struggles as parents, trying to carve out a better life amid relentless challenges. "Please," came a trembling voice from the back of the crowd. It was Clara again, her features pinched with concern. "If the police come, he'll be arrested. That's not going to solve anything." "She's right," Tom said, glancing back at her with urgency. "Instead of running away from them, we should approach Maybe we can explain everything. But an officer emerged from a squad car just a few feet away, his face set in a mask of unwavering authority. Several others followed, looking expectantly at the gathered crowd. The young man flinched as their eyes found him, the atmosphere crackling with unspoken accusations. "Step back, all of you," the officer commanded, raising a hand to halt their retreat. Mark's heart sank further. This felt like a moment on the edge of a precipice, ready to fall. "No." Mark stepped forward, heart pounding. "We need to talk. We're not the enemy here." The officer looked at him, brows furrowing. "Step aside, sir. We're handling a potential situation." "Handle? This is a person in need." Mark gestured toward the young man, who stood trembling before them. He was trying to get help to take care of his kid. "We're all fighting battles together, can't you see?" The officer hesitated, the twitch of his brow suggesting a flicker of doubt. For a heartbeat, there was silence, the crowd holding its breath, a collective desire for empathy hanging heavily in the air. But then another voice broke through the tension. It was the timid girl from the diner, her eyes unyielding as they met the officer's. "He's not a bad person. He just wanted to fix something." Her small frame seemed to radiate courage as she stepped forward, remaining resolute amidst the chaos and fear. Mark's stomach twisted. Would this little girl's bravery turn the tide? Would it be enough? The officer shifted, catching sight of the young man's scrapes and the pleading expressions crowding around him. The raw humanity of the scene ignited something in the crowd. Mark felt a flicker of hope, but it was tinged with uncertainty. What if he did something wrong? One onlooker whispered. "Can we just let him go? Don't you see?" Tom said, suddenly loud enough to capture everyone's attention. "We all make mistakes. Let us ask ourselves what would we want in his place. We can extend a hand or we can throw another punch, but they both lead to more trouble." Tension hummed in the air like an electric thread. Mark prayed that reason would win, prayed that in this moment, humanity would offer something kinder than judgment. As the officer studied the crowd, Mark's heart raced, adrenaline coursing through him, every second stretching painfully long. Would they see the opportunity to build rather than break? Before he could voice another word, the officer took a decisive step forward, hand resting on his belt. "If we're going to have a conversation, I want it to be orderly." Just as Mark opened his mouth to agree, the young man took a deep breath and spoke, voice shaking but stronger than before. "Please, I'm asking for understanding. I'm not trying to run or hide. I just need help." Mark's heart swelled, sensing the shift in the air. Would compassion win the day, or was this the moment when everything could unravel? As the officer studied the faces watching him, Mark held his breath, wondering what the next words would bring. With every eye focused on the scene, he realized the crowd could either become allies, or watch the young man lose everything. The fragile balance rested on a knife's edge. Would they break apart, or stand united for a greater good? In that heartbeat of decision, the silence was suffocating. Would this plea for help break the cycle, or would fear reclaim its grip? The tension hung thick like fog, but then something shifted, a ripple of determination spread through the crowd. Mark could feel it in the air, the unyielding strength of human connection. The officer shifted uncomfortably, his hardened gaze wavering slightly as whispers flowed through the crowd, a sea of voices swimming in unity. "What do you really need?" the officer finally asked, his tone slightly softer. "Talk to me." The young man inhaled sharply. "My daughter, she is sick. I was desperate. I thought if I could fix this, everything would be okay." His voice cracked, and tears spilled down his cheeks. "I just want to take care of her. I messed up. I didn't mean to cause trouble." Mark could see the crowd leaning in, even the skeptical ones. Clara's eyes glistened with empathy, while Tom nodded, encouraging the young man to keep going. The officer stepped closer, cautiously lowering his hand from his belt. You care about your daughter. That counts for something. There was a shift in his demeanor, a vulnerability flickering just beneath the surface of his uniform. Let us get you to someone who can help. Please, I just wanted to be a good father, the young man pleaded, looking back at the faces surrounding him. I just needed someone to understand. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was a shared moment of raw humanity, echoing the struggles of every parent standing there. Mark felt a surge of compassion wash over him. We've all felt lost, all of us. We're here with you. It's okay to ask for help. The young man's shoulders relaxed a fraction, like a weight had been lifted. He glanced at the officer, searching for any sign of acceptance. The crowd breathed in unison, expecting no, yearning for validation. In that moment of connection, the officer straightened up. Okay. Let us give you the help you need, he declared, speaking firmly but with warmth. Mark beamed with relief, feeling a spark of hope ignite within him. He marveled how fear had nearly won, but now there was an opening. It was a turning point, not just for the young man but for everyone who stood witness to this raw display of vulnerability. And what about the rest of us? A voice piped up from the back, breaking the blissful moment. Are we supposed to just go back to our lives? Just walk away? No, Tom replied swiftly, his eyes bright with resolve. This is bigger than one person. We need to figure out how to support each other. How to ensure no one feels alone in their struggles. Mark's heart swelled at the collective energy infiltrating the scene. They were ready to unite. They could be the voice, the bridge connecting communities struggling in silence. The officer nodded, seeming to embrace the idea. Let's take it step by step. How about we all talk? Hear each other out. We're not separate from this, every person here matters. A murmur traveled through the crowd, whispers of agreement transforming into voices of hope. One by one, people began to step forward, sharing their own stories and fears. Clara spoke about her family's struggles, and others followed suit, forming a tapestry of shared challenges, binding them together in the midst of chaos. Mark felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. This wasn't just a chance for the young man to get help, it felt bigger, as if they were building something greater that could span far beyond this street, beyond their individual lives. As laughter occasionally broke through the serious tones, someone stepped up with an unexpected question. But how do we keep this going? How do we ensure it doesn't die down like so many other good intentions? Mark's heart raced again, not with fear this time, but with possibilities. There was power in their unity, a chance to foster a lasting change that would reach out into every corner of their community. What if this moment sparked a movement? With the glow of anticipation fueling the air, he took a breath, ready to propose an idea. Perhaps they could form a coalition of hope where every voice mattered. But just as he began to speak, a loud crash echoed from down the street, slicing through their moment of warmth, leaving everyone in stunned silence. Was that another siren? Someone whispered, fear creeping back into the air. Mark knew they had to stay grounded in hope, but there loomed an unsettling question: could they truly stand united when faced with the chaos of the world outside? The crash echoed again, a jarring reminder of the world beyond their fragile community. Mark exchanged glances with Clara and Tom, uncertainty pooling in their eyes. The fear that had been banished seemed to creep back into their hearts, an unwelcome ghost at the feast. What was that? The young man, still trembling and vulnerable, asked, his voice barely above a whisper. It could be nothing, the officer soothed, though his eyes betrayed a deeper worry. Or it could be something we need to address together. The crowd fidgeted, some even starting to murmur about returning to safety, to their homes away from the chaos. But Mark felt a frantic energy build inside him. He couldn't let this moment slip away, not after everything they had just shared. We can't let fear redefine us, he called out, the urgency in his voice stronger than the tremors around him. Let us not forget the strength we found together just now. He stepped forward, pulling the group's attention back toward him. Every single one of us has a story struggles we've faced. We're here for each other, right? This moment means something. We need to keep this dialogue going. He felt a wave of support behind him, and the energy shifted again. Clara nodded fiercely, her eyes lighting up. Exactly. We're not just a crowd now, we're a community. What if we set up regular gatherings? We could share resources, stories, and build a network of support. Tom chimed in, his voice rising a little above the anxieties milling in the air. Look, if there's a crash, we can address it together. But we have to stay focused. Let us harness this momentum. The young man's tear-streaked face brightened. If I hadn't spoken up today, I might have walked away thinking I was all alone. I want to be part of this, to help others too. Something inside Mark shifted. That fire of hope ignited, not just within him but touching everyone gathered. The murmurings slowly began to morph into agreements, voices punctuated by laughter, hesitant but growing louder. They were not just spectators but active participants in their future. But the commotion outside grew louder still. Car doors slammed, raised voices seeped through the chaos. Someone shouted from a distance, and the crowd began to shift uneasily again. Is it safe to stay? Someone whispered. More worried gazes darted about. Mark could feel the moment teetering on the brink, hanging in the balance once again like a fragile glass bead. Let us stay together. Mark urged, holding out a hand. If we stay united, we can face anything. Think about it. What we felt just moments ago that can't be taken away by fear. We have each other. The officer stepped closely, sensing the growing tension. I'll stay right here with you. If anything happens, we'll handle it together. Just then, a figure emerged from the crowd, a woman in a striking red coat, her eyes scanning the scene, urgency etched on her face. We need to clear out. There's a situation further down that street. It's not safe anymore. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mark felt his heart drop. Do we flee? Clara asked, panic rising. Do we run? No, Mark replied fiercely. We can't scatter, let us stand with each other. This community matters more than our fear. But as fear swept through the streets, choking their newfound unity, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Would they band together through the panic, facing whatever darkness approached, or would a single moment of chaos unravel everything? The urgency in the air mounted. In the eye of the storm, Mark realized this was just the beginning. Buried deep within the chaos lurked questions that echoed louder than the crash. How far would they go to protect their newfound bond? And could they stay connected when faced with the turbulent waves of reality? The crowd buzzed with anxiety, the tension palpable like a thick fog wrapped around them. Fear danced in their eyes, and Mark could feel his heart racing like a drum in the silence that followed the woman's warning. The weight of uncertainty pressed down, heavy and unyielding. Listen! He shouted, raising his voice above the din. I know this is scary. We all feel it. But rushing away won't solve anything. We are stronger together. We've just started to find our footing, right? His appeal hung in the air, raw and defiant. Clara stepped up beside him, her jaw set with determination. Mark's right. If we run, we lose what we built here. Let us stay, at least for a moment longer. Let us understand what we're facing before making this choice. Her voice steadied those who were wavering, and soon others began to echo their sentiments. I'll stay too, Tom added, grasping Clara's shoulder in solidarity. The flames of courage began flickering back to life within the group, igniting hearts that the outside threats had dimmed. Then, as if the universe were toying with them, another crash erupted, closer this time. The officer's eyes widened, scanning the streets, his instincts kicking in. We need to assess the situation. Does everyone know where their loved ones are? Check in. His command echoed through the throng, rallying focus. Mark turned, trying to lock eyes with those around him, searching for confirmation, connection. Remember what we were just talking about? We can share thoughts on what we face next. Let us use this moment to bond. He gestured to a low wall nearby, as a place for them to gather. One by one, people moved hesitantly but filled with purpose. Their previous connections had shifted, they weren't just neighbors but fellow warriors against the chaos. Like scattered pieces of a puzzle, they came together, arms linked, fingers grasping. Mark could feel his own breath hitch in his throat as Clara stepped forward. Let us make a circle. If we can hold hands, we can literally feel the strength of each other. She glanced at the officer who nodded, stepping in to support the formation. As their hands intertwined, an electric promise of unity swelled between them. Laughter, shaky but pure, broke through the fear. They were here, standing together in defiance against uncertainty. Mark's gaze shifted to the horizon, the chaotic sounds around them began to soften. Just then, a sudden shout from someone in the crowd made everyone jump. What was that? A collective gasp echoed as attention swung toward a dark figure approaching beyond the thrumming energies. Stick together. The officer barked as he moved to assess the new threat. Mark's grip tightened around Clara's hand, feeling her warmth steady him. He could sense the uncertain tension creeping back, but he thought of their earlier conversations, the dreams they inspired. All of a sudden, they saw it clearly. The figure was a child, small and alone, stumbling over uneven pavement. Help me! She cried out, her voice trembled with fear and desperation. Mark's heart sank as he watched the small girl approach. Oh no, where's her family? He muttered, a sinking feeling washing over him. He exchanged worried glances with Clara, whose eyes shone with concern. We have to help her. Clara exclaimed, determination embossed in her features. But as they prepared to move, a troubling thought clawed at his mind. Was answering this plea worth the risk of unraveling their fragile unity? The group was faced with a choice: prosper in their own rediscovered power or rush out to help the vulnerable child. Can they weather the storm of emotions that loomed large? This was no longer just about survival, it was a test of their shared spirit. Would they step into the unknown again, or retreat? The question hung in the thickening air, a weight they were all about to bear together. Mark's heart raced. The child's cry, filled with raw emotion, shattered the fragile cocoon of safety they had woven just moments before. He exchanged anxious glances with Clara, her determined demeanor now mixed with an urgency that mirrored his own. Come on, Clara urged, squeezing Mark's hand before stepping forward. The officer's gaze darted between the girl and their group, his instinct still tangled in the threat of the unknown. Wait. We need to be cautious, he warned, but Mark felt the pull of the child's need override that caution. Every second counts, he countered, the heat in his chest rising. What if she's lost? We can't ignore her. The crowd shifted as a wave of uncertainty rolled through them, glances exchanged like silent conversations. Some were hesitant, others were ready to leap into action. What if there's danger hiding behind her? What if it's a trap? Someone murmured from the back. But the cries of the girl echoed and resonated louder than the worry. Each plea pulled at his heartstrings, drawing him closer. Mark inhaled deeply, letting the fear allow him clarity. We've talked about being a community, he called out, his voice steady. This girl needs us. We can't leave a child to fend for herself. Who's with us? At first, there was silence, a contemplative pause where the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then, Tom stepped forward, a glimmer of resolve in his eyes. I'm going, he said firmly, let us make sure she is okay. Me too, another voice from the circle chimed in, followed by a few more. Soon, a small band formed, stepping cautiously but resolutely toward the girl. Clara stood at Mark's side, her face set with purpose. As they moved closer, the crowd watched in quiet anticipation. Hearts beat faster, the air thick with shared worry that hung like a dense fog. Mark felt Clara's grip tighten on his hand, her resolve blending with his. "Hey, it's okay," Tom called gently as he reached the child. "We're here to help you. Where's your family?" The girl looked up, her tear-streaked face a mosaic of fear and relief. "I don't know," she wailed. "I was playing, and then I couldn't find them." Mark felt a wave of sympathy wash over him. He thought of his younger sister, the moments he spent looking for her when they were kids. That familiar helplessness gripped him. "It's okay," he said softly as he knelt down, meeting her wide, frightened eyes. "You're not alone anymore. We're going to help you." The girl took a shaky step forward, her small frame trembling. As she reached out, Mark gently took her hand, grounding them both in this chaotic moment. They began to circle back toward the group, ready to brainstorm what they could do next. But as they neared, a sudden tremor rippled through the ground, sending everyone staggering to regain their balance. Gasps erupted, and Mark felt his pulse quicken as another noise echoed, like thunder. "What was that?" Clara asked sharply, eyes wide with alarm as she scanned the horizon. The officers hurriedly pulled the crowd closer, faces painted with concern. "Stay close. We need to prioritize safety." The child clung to Mark's hand, eyes darting to the noise. "Are we safe?" In that instant, Mark realized the stakes were higher than he ever imagined. They hadn't just made a decision to help someone, they had stepped into something larger, a test of their strength and unity as they faced unknown threats. The ground shook again, and in the dim light, shadows loomed closer. Where were they? What had they awakened with their choice? As fear and determination battled within him, Mark's heart drummed louder than before. The answer to their next challenge was just out of reach. Would they hold on tight to their newfound bond or be swallowed by chaos once more? As the noise intensified, Mark could barely think. The ground beneath them trembled, and anxiety clutched at his gut, but he forced himself to focus. The girl's hand was small and fragile in his, he had to protect her, and everyone else around him. "Gather close," he shouted, trying to keep the panic in his voice at bay. The crowd shifted together, a mass of bodies forming a protective circle around the child. "What's happening?" Clara yelled, her face etched with worry as she kept her eyes alert, scanning for any signs of danger. "I don't know," Tom replied, standing tall beside Mark. "But we've got to keep each other safe. We can't let fear tear us apart." Mark felt the determination ripple through the crowd as courage awakened. They were bound together, not just by fear, but by the shared mission they had embraced. He believed in them, and somehow, they began to believe in each other. "Is everyone okay?" Mark called, scanning the faces around him. It was more than just the little girl he held, they were all interlinked by something that felt like family. The gentle murmur of agreement eased the knot in his chest, reminding him of the strength that surged when they stood united. The rumbling echoed again, but this time it felt different, like a distant storm clashing with their fragile sanctuary. "We need to move," Mark urged, pulling the girl gently closer. "We have to find a place where we can regroup, figure out our next step together. We can't let the chaos scatter us." "But where do we go?" someone murmured, glancing nervously at the exits to the street. Mark thought hard, memories rushing back of the diner filled with laughter and warmth. "The diner!" he shouted, feeling a surge of hope. "It's south just down the street. We can get everyone there and figure out how to support each other." Tom nodded, determination shining in his eyes. "Let us go then, together." With that, they started to move as one, coalescing together into a unified body, a mass of humanity fighting against the noise around them. The journey felt treacherous, with the ground shaking underfoot, but they marched through the uncertainty. The little girl stayed tight beside Mark, looking up at him with wide, trusting eyes as they moved forward. He promised her with a smile that everything would be all right, even when they didn't yet know if it was true. As they reached the diner, the warm glow from inside embraced them like an old friend. Tom held the door open, and they rushed in, a flood of bodies and emotions. The regulars were already huddled together, eyes wide with fear, but as soon as the group entered, the atmosphere became charged with electricity. "Everyone, we need to come together," Mark called out, shifting easily back into leadership mode, feeling the weight of responsibility. "We've encountered something outside uncertainty, chaos, but inside these walls, we have each other. Let us share what we've learned and how we can support one another moving forward." Clara stepped next to him, her presence solid and reassuring. "Mark's right. Today has connected us in ways we might not fully comprehend yet. By being here together, we're already showing how strong we are." A woman from the back spoke up. "But what if those outside come after us?" Fear crept back into her voice, echoing in the hearts around them. Mark took a deep breath, feeling the weight of that fear, but he also felt the warmth of hope that sparked in his chest. "If we face those struggles together, we'll be stronger than any threat. We're ready for this. Together, we can build defenses not just against the outside chaos, but towards creating a community built on understanding and compassion. That's what keeps us safe." As voices began to rise and passions ignited, he felt a ripple of energy spread through the crowd. They were brainstorming solutions, talking about community meetings, finding ways to share resources, and lighting the path for the future. One notion after another flew about like fireworks erupting in the summer sky. It was messy, chaotic, and yet, exquisitely beautiful. The little girl had found her place, now nestled between Clara and Mark, her eyes bright with inspiration. "Can we really help each other?" she asked shyly, her voice lilting with hope. "Yes." Clara beamed down at her. "We absolutely can. Together, as family." Mark watched as the warmth of connection spread among the crowd, enveloping them in shared purpose. No longer were they alone, standing on individual islands of isolation, they intertwined, forming a network held together by love, respect, and the belief that they could make things better not just for one another but for every child and family struggling outside their doors. With each moment, he became more certain that change was afoot. The chaos beyond them was loud, but within this diner, they felt safe. They were a testament to resilience, ready to tackle whatever came next together. And it dawned on Mark, perhaps the real struggle had always been the journey towards belonging, and now, there in that warm diner, among people who had become like family, they were united in hope. The tumult outside could not touch their spirits, for these souls stood unwavering, hearts intertwined, ready to fight for one another and rise against any storm that dared to approach. This was their moment. "Are you with me?" Mark shouted, voice ringing with conviction. "Yes." Rose the collective roar as empowerment surged, a decisive answer crashing victoriously against the tides of doubt. Through all the trials and tribulations they had faced, they had finally transformed into a community, into a family, and Mark could feel it blooming in the air like a beautiful sunrise over the city skyline. This was their story, and it was only just beginning. Now, if you felt this energy and want to continue this journey with us, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and be part of the transformation we're creating together. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread this shared hope. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about how this journey unfolded. We want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread this message of unity and hope far and wide.